This is Histories and Mysteries. I'm one of your hosts, Ashley, and this is
Jessica. And on today's episode, Ashley's going to be talking about the cult NXIVM. And I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You did.
Okay, just every letter of the alphabet. So, and I'm going to be talking about something I forgot about. Oh, the Heaven's Gate cult. So today is a cult episode, and we hope you enjoy it because NXIVM is like very prevalent in the media right now. So there's been a lot of updates on it, and I've never heard of it. So I'm excited to learn about it and hear more about it because I legitimately know nothing about it other than one major component. But
yeah,
I'm excited.
It's an interesting cult.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate is too, and I'm like really excited to share it with everybody. Mine isn't obviously like as detailed because I mean we only have one episode for it, but there is a podcast called Heaven's Gate. I really suggest somebody go. I suggest people go listen to it. It's very fascinating. The host actually was part of a cult himself when he was younger, because his parents were involved in it. So he has a lot of experience with the mentality behind it. And in their podcast, they actually get interviews with family members and previous members of the cult. So it's just very, very cool and a lot more detailed than what I'm going to be giving to you today. So I suggest you go listen to it. It's really, really cool.
It's just called Heaven's Gate?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I found it on Spotify, but it's really, really good.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. I don't know a lot about Heaven's Gate. Like I told you, the only thing I really remember is that it was a mass suicide and there were bunk beds and Nikes. That's really all I remember.
And then I was like, I don't remember the bunk beds.
I don't know why that stuck in my head, but it did. Oh, goodness. So, yeah, so we're going to talk about cults, and I decided to do NXIVM. I mean, obviously, there's a plethora of cults to choose from. And I find cults just extremely interesting, the way the mind works and the psychology behind them. I always really found them fascinating, but now in like today's day and age, they're also really frustrating, right? Like the way that people think and like, you know, just believe everything that the leader tells them. I can't imagine having a family member in a cult and like how frustrating that would be.
Well, and it's odd because I'm more I have more knowledge on like the cults from the 70s and 80s and stuff, like
right.
Jonestown, Marilyn Manson, and Heaven's Gate, obviously.
I said Marilyn Manson.
I know.
Do you mean Charles Manson?
Yeah.
not the singer.
Oh my gosh. And you know what's funny is that the other name that came to my head was Marilyn Monroe. And I'm like, no, that's the singer.
That Marilyn Manson cult, man.
Oh no.
So this is the first time we've ever recorded in the like before the nighttime. So I don't think that our brains are completely awake yet.
I like just woke up and I haven't been getting much sleep the last couple weeks. Oh, so Charles Manson. So I'm more versed in those cults. And it's easier to get like your head wrapped around it because it was the day and age of like wandering and trying to find yourself. And
yeah. And like finding drugs and
it just seems like it would be a dying art now. But I mean, then you have NXIVM and you have Scientology, and it's so it's harder for me to get my head wrapped around modern day cults.
Yeah.
Than it was around the previous New Age cults. So
right. Well, and one thing I'll talk about with NXIVM too is kind of like the psychology, but also they were like trapped and I'll talk about it in a bit. So let's just get into it.
Okay.
So I got my sources from, there's actually this really, really good show on, or documentary, I think it's on Amazon Prime, called Cults and Extreme Beliefs. And each episode focuses on a different cult or extreme belief.
No.
Yes.
Well, I was just making fun because you're like, the title of it is Cults and Extreme Beliefs, and every episode focuses on either a cult or an extreme belief.
Oh.
No, really. You don't say.
This was like, yes, why'd you say no? So in my head, I said a different, but I guess I didn't say a different. So each episode focuses on a different one. So it's not like a series all about NXIVM.
Okay,
Each
cool.
episode focuses on a different one. It can be a little controversial though, so watch it with care. The second episode is on the religion Jehovah's Witness. So, just be cautious. It's a little controversial. But the first one does talk about NXIVM, which is very interesting. I also cited a Times Magazine article by Jasmine Aguilera. I used Wikipedia and then filmdaily.co. All right, so like Jessica said in the beginning, the cult uses just like a whole bunch of letters. When I first told her I was going to do it, I was like, I want to do that cult like NXI, ABCDEFG, or whatever. But it is NXIVM, and it's pronounced NXIVM. So you did get it right, Jessica.
Okay, cool.
So it started off as an MLM, multi-level marketing scheme, for those of you that don't know, which if you listen to any podcast, like I'm sure you've heard of MLMs, their podcasts are really coming down on them, but it's basically a pyramid scheme, right? And they sold self-improvement seminars. So it was started in 1998 by Keith Raniere and Nancy Salzman. They sold it as executive success programs that are, quote, the main emphasis is to have people experience more joy in their life. And that's a quote from Keith. So the way it was set up was that Raniere was the philosopher and Salzman was like his first student. So he was called Vanguard. Like everybody in the cult called him Vanguard. Apparently it was from some video game where you kill your enemies to increase your own power. I don't know. And
a lot of video games.
Yeah. And she was called Prefect. And they were like the top two people. But Keith was like the top one, right? And so they would set up these executive success programs. People would pay to take them. And by 2003, they already had 3,700 people that had taken these courses.
Wow.
Some notables are Sheila Johnson, who was the co-founder of BET. Do you guys have BET in Canada?
I don't know what that is.
I think it's Black Entertainment Television.
I don't know. Maybe we have different channel programs, right? So we might have it. I don't know if we have that program.
Well, it's like a channel like MTV or VH1, BET.
I've never heard of it personally. So
okay,
but yeah, I can't speak.
Like
I can't speak for the rest of Canada. I don't know.
Okay,
we might have it somewhere, but I've never heard.
Well,
of
she
it
was the co-founder of BET.
Okay,
and then Antonia Novello was the former Surgeon General. Stephen Cooper, who is an Enron executive. They also had the former president of Mexico's daughter.
Oh.
2 or 3 actresses from Battlestar Galactica.
Ooh, good show.
And the Seagram heiresses. So Seagram's, the liquor Seagram's.
Okay.
Their dad, I guess, kind of was a part of it, and then he realized that he didn't like it, that it was kind of culty. So he left, but they stayed.
Smart man.
Yeah, so a lot of, which I didn't realize this, but a lot of the Seagram profits goes to fund this cult. So don't buy Seagrams, everybody.
Don't buy Seagram.
Yeah. Okay, so their main belief was this thing called limiting beliefs. So it's like anything that you think you can't do is a limiting belief. which sounds great, but so do most cults in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And their goal was to remove these patterns and issues you've had your whole life and remove these limiting beliefs. Come to find out later on, some of these limiting beliefs are like, you need sleep, you need calories. That's a limiting belief.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. So they have a hierarchy or like a rank, if you will, just as most cults do. And it's shown by a colored sash, kind of similar to karate.
Yeah.
So like different colored sashes would mean different things, but instead of like a belt, they wore like a sash, so like over their shoulders. They also have classes called intensives, which were 12 hours a day for 16 days and could cost up to $7,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of people would like throw their life savings into this or like max out their credit cards for it. And then the way it was like a multi-level marketing scheme is that you would recruit people to take these courses, and then they would recruit people to take these courses. And the more people you recruited, the higher level you would get, just like with I think Sensi is a multi-level marketing, or LuLaRoe, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So during these intensives, they were broken up into modules, and one module was called relationship sourcing, where they would look at, this is so fucked up. They would look at what kind of benefits and money they would receive if their spouse died unexpectedly.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I always joke with my husband because he's older than me that when he dies, I get his benefits, like his life insurance. And then we joke that he's not going to get anything from me except for my pension, but I do not have life insurance yet.
So another one of their course or modules was called, and this one's just ironic, Dracula and His Ghouls, which looked at psychopaths and their followers.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah, I wrote in here, I wrote ... because he's a psychopath and he has followers.
Yes, he did.
So they would also have this practice called exploration of meaning, where higher ranked members would question deep into lower ranked childhoods.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I think that kind of, and I don't have any proof for this, this is just my thought on it, is it held, two reasons for that. One is to kind of break them down, get them vulnerable, and two, probably get some dirt on them.
Yeah.
It's kind of my thought. But they also, this is weird. So weird. They also believe that a lot of them, like a lot of top ranking ones, were reincarnated Nazis.
Oh.
Yeah. And like they kind of had to atone for that. But they would have like specific Nazis that they used to be. Like, I used to be, so-and-so, and I used to be so-and-so. And one of them was like a reincarnated Hitler. And it was really weird why they would kind of like focus on that.
And like pick the worst person ever.
Yeah. So as most cult leaders, there were lots of, rumors about Keith, and apparently it was said, and I think he said this as well, that he had an IQ of 240. I don't know if you know the average IQ.
Nope.
I think it's like, I'm gonna double check because I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so an IQ of 90 to 110 is average.
Okay.
An IQ of 121 to 130 is considered superior. And he said he had an IQ of 240. Yes.
Ugh, yeesh.
He said he was a concert pianist. He was the East Coast judo champion at the age of 11. And he also said he earned degrees in math, biology, and physics.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Someone is compensating for something else.
Right? um, and so one of the followers that was in this documentary, his name was Mark. He was pretty high up. A lot of people said that he was like Keith's best friend, and Keith didn't have friends. So this Mark guy said that one of the main reasons why he followed him so long is because he was very like drawn in by intelligence.
Okay.
So with Keith saying that he was this genius, he had all these things, he was very like drawn in and wanted to listen to him because he's like, well, if he's a genius, I should listen to him. He's probably got a lot of great ideas.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that happened, and this is going to come back later on in an experiment they did, was that this Mark guy, he was a journalist, and one of his journalist friends sent him this video of 4 women being decapitated by Mexican cartel.
Oh.
Yeah, and Mark was really upset by this video. He was like, this is really disturbing. It's really upsetting to see.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And so he called Keith to talk to him about it because he was kind of like not only was he his friend, but he was like his mentor. And Keith said, well, send me the video. I want to see it. And Mark was like, no, I don't want to send this to anybody. And he was like, no, send it to me. I want to see it. And so he did. And then a couple weeks later, Keith called him in and said, hey, I want to talk to you about that video. So he goes in and Keith started to talk about like the perspective of every person in that video. Like, what do you think the perspective is of this guy? What do you think the perspective is of this guy? What do you think the perspective is of this woman that's getting beheaded? Yeah. And Mark said that it astounded him that he could think rationally about it, that he didn't have that guttural reaction that Mark had had. And when you're in a cult, you can really twist that into being like, oh, look how evolved he is. Look how intelligent he is, being able to look at this and putting his feelings aside. On the outside, you look at it as like,
look how fucked he is.
Yeah, that's a psychopath. He has no, feelings. So
even a sociopath at that point.
Yeah, true. He would say things. He had this video series that Mark did where he interviewed Keith. And Keith would interview like a bunch of different of his followers and try and kind of talk about like their views. And it was a YouTube series, I think probably to garner, more interest in their group. And he would say things without actually saying things, which mirrors a lot of what is going on today. So it's just very interesting. But one of the quotes from him in that video was, "We have sterling credentials, but we don't have credentials in the field. See, credentials seem to be self-limiting in the field." So like, it sounds fancy, but like he really didn't say anything. Like,
yeah,
cool. Also, Keith kissed everyone on the lips as a greeting, and I just thought that was gross, so I put that in there.
Ew.
Yeah, it makes me think of that episode. Do you ever watch Boy Meets World?
Yeah.
Where Sean joins the cult and everybody hugs.
Like I don't remember that episode, no. But like I used to watch Boy Meets World like all the time.
Yeah, Sean joins a cult and everybody like hugs as a greeting, but in this one Keith kisses everybody on the lips.
Ew.
Yeah.
Pervert.
Yeah. So at this point though, it just really sounds like an MLM with like a leader that's a little crazy, right? So how did it turn into a sex cult? Because that's what it's known for right now. They always call it the sex cult.
Oh.
Yeah. They had a women's group within the MLM called JNESS, JNESS.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be like a workshop for women to discover themselves. It was $15,000.
Oh.
For 3 8-day trainings.
Interesting.
Yeah. And these women would recruit other women to come in. But Mark, the one from earlier, mentioned that it was always very pretty women. And he said, quote, never the fat one. So looks like I'd be safe.
Me too.
Uh,
Lucky me.
and this is where Allison Mack comes in. She's been in the news a lot lately. She played the best friend on Smallville. Cute little thing, little blonde. She's adorable. She was the leader of JNS. So she got recruited by Keith. And so once she was in, she started this JNS group. And also, I meant to tell you, Jessica, that a lot of this takes place in Canada.
Ooh.
Yeah, they had like a big area or a big like sect, I guess, in Vancouver.
That makes sense.
And then in the United States as well, obviously. So for JNS, Keith would say that women were seen as weak and flaky. He said that if men say they're going to show up somewhere, they were going to show up somewhere, but women don't always do that. And women are supposed to be monogamous, and men are designed to be polyamorous, and women should be subservient to their men.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. So then this offshoot started to produce, and all that's going to come into play when I talk about one of the cult members, Sarah, who's been very vocal coming out of the cult. Like that mentality that Keith was portraying of women will all kind of come into play. So then this JNS offshoot started to get women to join another offshoot called DOS, D-O-S, which stands for, I'm going to mess this up because it's Latin, Dominus Obsequious Sororium.
That sounds correct.
Which, yeah, I was pretty impressed with myself just then. Which means master over the slave woman.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. You had to be initiated to get into DOS, and then you made a lifetime commitment to your master.
Oh.
And they would twist it as kind of like it's your guru. It's like a guru relationship, you know. And the masters were generally other women, so it was just like the hierarchy. Like one master would have slaves, and then those slaves would be a master to other slaves, and so on and so forth. Keith being at the top. And let's see. But you had to give some kind of collateral to be in DOS. Like they had to have something on you. Some women gave the deed to their houses. Some women would give up like secrets or nudes that if like they got released would be like detrimental to them or their career. One of the most well-known members of NXIVM was Sarah. If you watch The Vow, it's a new documentary. I can't remember what streaming service it's on, but it's basically Sarah's story because Sarah is one of the original whistleblowers of this cult. She had a really big hand in recruiting a lot of people. She was really good at recruiting, and so she recruited a lot of people. In fact, True Crime Obsessed just did a series in their Patreon of The Vow, and so it goes through all of this, and Sarah's very prevalent in that, so we know a lot about her story. But she got pretty high up in the MLM and decided to join DOS. One of her best friends kind of convinced her to join DOS and became her master. Her name was Lauren. So Lauren became Sarah's master. Lauren was like, they were like best friends. Like she was the officiant in her wedding and her maid of honor. Wow. Like they were really close. And so to join DOS, Lauren said, okay, well, again, you need collateral. And Sarah didn't really have anything. So what she ended up doing was giving her naked photos of herself. And Sarah was an aspiring actress. So that was like really detrimental to her career. And she also videotaped herself lying on camera about like her parents and about her husband abusing their kids. And none of it was true. So like if that got out, obviously that could have severe legal consequences for her husband. You know, they'd have to start an investigation about him abusing the children.
Of course.
Yeah.
But like
which
everything would have been founded to be incorrect. So
of course, but it would be hell for a while for him, you know. Um, and so during this master slave relationship, if their master texted their slave, they had 60 seconds to respond to any text, night or day, didn't matter. 60 seconds. And in the documentary, she said, or what? Like, what happens if you don't respond? And Sarah said the first time Lauren said that she would get in big trouble from her master. So some of that has that psychological at play, you know, like you're loyal to your best friend, you don't want her to get in trouble. And then she said she would be paddled and put into a cage. So one time one of the slaves didn't respond to Lauren within 60 seconds. And so because they didn't all like live in the same, like somewhere in Canada, somewhere in America, they got naked and two of the women videotaped themselves paddling each other and then sent it to their master, who obviously sent it to Keith for obvious reasons.
Obvious.
Yeah. Some of the masters would also give orders to have sex with Keith, and they would. And others were kind of being like groomed for sexual acts with Keith.
Fun.
One woman, this is disgusting. One woman was blindfolded and brought into a shack where Keith came in and performed oral sex on her without her ever knowing who it was.
Ew.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of the thing that really got people, is the next step of the initiation into DOS was to get a tattoo of the group. They couldn't know what the tattoo looked like beforehand, and they couldn't see it until the night of the initiation. They were supposed to get it on their hip, like right by their pelvic region.
Yeah.
And Sarah was like, I don't want to, but again, as Keith would say, women are flaky, and if they don't want to do something, they just don't do it. So she decided to go through with it. This all happened at Alice and Mac's house, and they all got naked. They went into a guest room where like a massage table was laid out, and they were supposed to lay on the table to get a tattoo. Only they found out it wasn't a tattoo. It was a brand.
Oh.
And it wasn't like one of those like stamp brands, you know, where it's like the shape and they stamp it in. It was literally just like a poker, and they would drag it down their skin to make the design.
Cool.
Yeah. And so once they figured that, I mean, they had to hold these women down while this was happening because they were screaming, obviously. And the psychological manipulation here was just incredibly deep. Sarah said that, she didn't want to do it. And Laura said to her, you have to do this. You committed to it. You have to do this to be a better person, a better wife, a better mother. And she had all that stuff from Keith in her head, like women are flaky, all this kind of stuff. Like, I have to do this. Plus, they had all that collateral on her, right? They said it was supposed to build character to experience your body separate of yourself. And then you could do anything. Like if you could get past the pain, you could do anything. Sarah said it took 40 to 45 minutes of this like searing pain. And Sarah had one or two kids at this point, and she said that this was the worst pain she'd ever felt.
But like you would hope that they would pass out at some point from the pain, no?
I mean, she didn't mention it. I don't know. I just can't imagine. So now she's got this brand on her, right? But she said afterwards she felt proud of herself. Like she didn't want to do something, but she did it. She followed through with it. And all these ladies kind of got closer because they bonded over this trauma, right? Like trauma bonds people.
Yeah.
So the branding, you can look it up. I mean, it's all over the place. It just kind of looks.
Looking it up right now.
Yeah. It's kind of looks like, it just looks like a symbol. Like you can't really make heads or tails of it. It's just kind of like a T with like a V. It's kind of weird.
It just looks like mush.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing to it.
Like there's literally
Now,
nothing to it.
if you turn it sideways, it's a K and an R, Keith Raniere's initials.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you go straight up, you can also see an A and an M for Allison Mack.
Cool.
Yeah, so basically Keith had them brand themselves with his initials. And
crazy pants.
He would like deny it. He's like, I had no idea what they were even doing. But Sarah was using Lauren's phone to record one of the ladies getting branded. And while she was holding the phone, a text from KAR, Keith, I can't remember his middle name, but it started with an A, Raniere, and it said, how are the ladies doing with all of it? So he obviously knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So once she figured out that it was actually like the initials, things started to click for her. And, you know, it started to seem a little fishy. So she told her husband about it, and he like lost his mind. You know, he was pissed. He's like, we're getting out of this cult. We're leaving. I don't care. But before she had told her husband, like she was really scared. She was thinking about leaving, but she's like, they have this collateral on me. I said such awful things about my husband and my family. Like they're going to disown me. She's got these nudes on me. Like, I don't know what to do. And so she actually called Mark, the original guy that we talked about earlier, who was the one that kind of recruited her. And they were really close. And she told him what was going on. And he had no idea. And he was like, listen, he's like, I'm resigning. I'm leaving this group. And you need to make peace with whatever it is they have on you and leave.
Yeah.
So she did. She made peace with it. She ended up telling her husband. She told him everything. And that's when he was like, all right, we're leaving. So like I said earlier, one of the things for this sex cult was that Keith was having sex with like all of his, because it was also like a business. It was that MLM, right? So he was having sex with all of these top women in his company, all of his students. Many of them would sign contracts, lifetime contracts, saying that they would only sleep with Keith. But he was sleeping with like 20 or 30 women, which, I mean, are grown adults. If you want to do that, you know, you do you. You know, if you want to sleep with a bunch of women, you want to sign a contract saying that you're only going to sleep with Keith, like, but he had them so brainwashed and told them that sleeping with him would help their character growth.
Keith is really ugly.
Yeah, he's not cute.
Sorry.
But he had them brainwashed and told them that sleeping with him would help their character growth.
Superb.
He said, quote, it was a spiritual experience or a transfer of his godlike energy to have sex with him. Okay, Keith, I feel like most men think that, but
okay.
And at the same time, he was the most important person to them. Like, it was an honor, you know, because they were so brainwashed by him.
Yeah.
On this documentary that I was watching, there was a cult and sociopathic PhD, which I want that job.
Yeah.
And she started talking about cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
So when Sarah started to come forward with all of this information, others in the cult who didn't leave, like some people did leave, but those who didn't leave would double down on their beliefs. And she explained that cognitive dissonance is when reality doesn't match your belief system. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to retain your belief system rather than change your reality because it's easier.
Yeah.
So you're just going to double down on that belief and be like, no, 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 instead of accepting reality.
Well, exactly, because they've been brainwashed, essentially.
Right. Yeah. So kind of to further talk about how bad this cult was, some members were objected to something called the Fright experiment. A doctor who was part of the cult named Brandon P. Porter conducted this experiment, and he measured EEG levels as people watched videos of people being murdered. like real life people, and they had no idea what was coming. He just said, okay, we're going to watch some videos and then we're going to talk about it. And one of the videos they used was that video that Mark had sent them of the cartel decapitating those women.
Oh, fun.
And they interviewed one of the ladies that was in this fright experiment, and she said it so badly affected her. Like, you could tell she was like, in the interview, she would start crying about it. Like, it just affected her so deeply. And she's like, I think part of it is I had no idea what was coming. You know, all of a sudden I'm watching these, because in the video, not only do the women get decapitated, but then he chops them up.
Oh.
Yeah, and so she has to watch this.
Not great.
Yeah. And the woman with the PhD from the documentary said that this was probably used to desensitize them for worse abuse to come and to see how far they could push them, you know. This doctor also failed to report an outbreak of norovirus at a retreat, and so he lost his license. Ha ha ha. In 2018, Keith Raniere was arrested in Mexico and extradited to the U.S. He was found guilty on 7 charges, 2 counts of sex trafficking, racketeering, and forced labor conspiracy, and was sentenced to 120 years in prison.
Good. May he rot in
Allison Mack was also arrested on charges of sex trafficking and forced labor. She pled guilty to racketeering conspiracy and racketeering charges, and she has yet to be sentenced, but she is facing up to 40 years.
Good.
Women of the NXIVM cult are still dancing outside of Keith's jail cell as a way to support him.
Ew.
And obviously, this was just a super quick rundown of NXIVM. There's so much more to it and so much more information. So if you're interested, you know, there's the True Crime Obsessed podcast that covers it. There's tons of documentaries coming out on it. And there's still, I mean, it's still so new. I mean, Keith just got sentenced in October of this year. Yeah. So I'm sure we're going to get more information about, you know, the seedy underbelly of it as it continues. So keep an eye out. It is going to be a wild ride for sure.
Well, cool. Yeah. That was more wild than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, that was not what I expected at all. So that was fun. I liked that.
Yeah, it's you hear of like NXIVM, but you don't like hear how deep it went.
Well, and I've never heard of it until you mentioned it, so
okay,
that was good to hear about.
Yeah, and it takes place in Canada and the U.S.
I'm not surprised it was BC at all.
I don't know anything about Canada, like that type of stuff. So,
well, it's just because like BC is where they film a lot of TV shows, right? Like for the U.S.
Oh, okay.
So like a lot of stuff was filmed, or like Supernatural was filmed mostly in BC.
Gotcha.
So it's just it's not surprising considering that's where a lot of stuff is filmed. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, not because BC is a bad place to live, but just because that is where a lot of industry happens. So. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about Heaven's Gate right now.
Yay!
As mentioned, listen to that other podcast too after you listen to this, because it does go into a lot more detail and it's very, very interesting. So the sources I used, of course, all that's interesting.
Of course.
I used Rolling Stone, History.com, and Biography.com. I didn't get any author names, so I'm really sorry. So we'll see what happens. So just so everybody is aware to how dedicated I am to this podcast, with the help of a really wonderful person I kind of like met on a mutual Facebook group, and hopefully she's a new listener. I know she followed us, so I hope that she listens and she likes us. And if you are listening, thank you so much. I really appreciate your help. But she was able to help me locate one of the previous Heaven's Gate cult members on Facebook.
Awesome.
So I messaged him, and he is actually in that podcast, the Heaven's Gate podcast. Like they interview him. He's very open about everything, and he's very nice. So he's going to hopefully be answering some of our questions soon.
And he's still a believer, right?
Yes, he is
Okay.
still a believer. He very much so wants to spread the word and the message of what happened and what he still believes in, and he still wants to bring their message forward. So
Gotcha. Okay.
and he seems very, very nice so far. Like, I've been talking to him for a little bit. He's very open and honest about stuff, so I'm still waiting to
Awesome.
hear from him. So once he responds, I'll do like a little snippet at the beginning of an episode, depending on how long his answers are to some questions I sent over. But we'll see, like, if it's either a full episode or if he wants to come on and talk himself. It's up to him. So we're just kind
Cool.
of
I look
waiting on
forward
that.
to that.
Me too. I'm really excited to hear back from him.
Yeah.
But I was able to message the group itself because they have a website still up, and it's the original website from the 90s. And
Does it look like a good 90s website?
oh yeah. And it still has like their departing message on there. So it's
Oh, wow.
really cool to look through. They have a lot of different stuff on there. But I was able to.
That's kind of creepy that like their departing message is still up.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's gonna give me chills.
Yeah, it's really cool to see though. Like,
Yeah.
it's very interesting that nothing has changed since
Yeah.
then. It's respectful, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's unknown like who's running the website still, since the cult's obviously no more.
Uh-huh.
But I found an email address on there. And I'm like, oh, I'm curious to see if this is still functional.
They'll respond.
So they responded pretty much immediately, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
And they were very, like, yeah, for sure. If you have questions for us, like, send them our way. We'll answer over email. And so
Cool.
I asked them some questions and they gave some responses, which I'll go through at the very end. But
Okay.
I just want to say thank you again to them if they've somehow listened to this episode. Thank you again. It's very appreciated that you were able to answer our questions because it's very fascinating. So, okay, so I'll get into it a little bit more now. So the first component of Heaven's Gate was a man by the name of Marshall Applewhite. He was born in 1931 in Texas, and he was the son of a minister.
Okay, so all of this so far checks with chart. Born in Texas, son of a minister. Got
Yes,
it.
exactly. He graduated college in 1952, and he got married that same year to his wife. He also spent 2 years in the Army, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
He sang opera.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and he was a very charismatic public speaker, which he probably learned from his father, being the son of a minister.
Yeah.
And this personality trait and this skill was obviously help him run his cult in the future.
Right, yeah.
Because you have to be very charismatic and outspoken to get followers and keep people around, right?
Right.
So in the early 1970s, he was a music teacher until he was fired for supposedly having relations with a male student.
Oh, I hate to hear that.
Yes. 2 years prior, he and his wife divorced and they had 2 children together. So I think what happened was that was his second time being caught with a male student.
Ugh.
So I think he was fired from one job, then he moved to this position, and then he got fired for the same thing. But
that's something like I used to be a high school teacher, so I was like 20. I think I was like 24 maybe when I had I was a little bit later, but I think I was like 24, 25 when I got my first teaching job, and I taught high schoolers. And so some of them were, 18, and but like they were my babies, like I always made the joke that like their moms still probably pack their lunches for them and pick their clothes out for them. Like, they're not adults. Like, even if they're 18, there's not one student of mine that I would ever look at and be like, oh yeah, like that's just
yeah, exactly. And
they're
I mean,
babies.
like, well, and he was a university professor, I believe, Don't quote me. I'm pretty sure everything I read was that he was a music teacher at a university.
Okay. Well,
So,
not that that's good, but it's a little different.
it's still the same thing, right? Because it's these people that you're mentoring over.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's bad, but at least they're a little bit older. Not that I'm
Yeah.
condoning it in any way, shape, or form. It's still bad. You're still their teacher. You should never
Well,
do that. But at least
and
he's
that's
not
the
like
thing.
preying on like 15-year-olds.
Yeah, I know. But still, it's just like it is hard to wrap your head around it because like I was a youth group leader back in high school, and it was for these kids that were in like elementary school, but they were
Uh-huh.
only like a couple years younger than me. But I'm like, oh, they're my babies. Like,
Yeah, they're like even now, like some of them will reach out to me on Facebook, and I mean I'm 34, so some of them I haven't taught in like 10 years, and they'll reach out to me on Facebook just to like be Facebook friends and like catch up on what they're doing. A lot of them are like having babies now. It's so
yeah,
crazy.
that's so
But
fun.
it's still to this day, like they're still my little babies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is hard to get your head wrapped around that. I don't.
Yeah.
But to each their own, right? I guess. So they had interviewed her sister, and his sister said that he was funny and charismatic. He was an overachiever, and he was on the honor roll.
Okay.
So to those that knew him, they never thought that he could have been capable of what he created and what he ultimately did. Like he was a jokester, a Christian, a husband and a father. And
Yeah.
it made no sense as to how or why he just walked away from his life to found a cult.
Yeah.
So it was it was shocking for everybody. Now the second half of Heaven's Gate was a woman by the name of Bonnie Nettles. She was born in 1927 in Texas. Nettles and Applewhite met in 1972 at the hospital that Nettles worked at. There's two different stories here as to how they met. One story is that Applewhite was in the hospital due to heart trouble, or like he was having a psychiatric meltdown, whatever it was. And it's alleged that Nettles told Applewhite that he was saved for a reason because he was experiencing a near-death experience.
Oh, okay.
And Applewhite's description of how it happened was that he was visiting somebody in the hospital and he saw Nettles in the hall and they had an immediate spiritual connection.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's just those two different stories. So not entirely sure which one is 100% accurate, but those are the two different stories. But either way, they did meet in the hospital that Nettles worked at.
Okay.
Either way, they both hit it off and they began discussing their interests in astrology and the mystics. They were both convinced that they were the two witnesses mentioned in the book of Revelation. And those were the ones that were resurrected by God and brought to heaven.
Okay.
Yes. So they were the two witnesses.
I wonder how you decide that.
I don't know. Probably just through talking with each other, right? Because they were into the spiritual side of things and mystics and like a lot of that, I'm assuming, like I think a lot of that has to do with like necromancy and resurrection and everything. And they could just be like, oh, this is my life experiences. Oh, this is my life experiences. And because they had an immediate spiritual connection too, right? So
yeah,
they were like, oh, we were drawn together for a reason. Like we were brought together for a specific purpose.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the only thing I can probably think of. They were both convinced that they were oh God, I just said that. So they would originally call themselves Bo and Peep, and they later
that's cute.
Yeah. And they later changed it to Doe, who is Applewhite, and T, so for Nettles. So Doe and T.
Oh, I always wondered how they got those nicknames.
Yes. So Doe was Applewhite and T was Nettles.
Okay.
They had a sexless partnership, wherein Nettles was the diviner and Applewhite was a speaker that drew in their followers and the crowds. It was a cult that cultivated in the 19 sorry. It cultivated in the 70s when people were in search of something more and they were trying to find themselves.
Yeah.
It was also very techy for its time. As mentioned, they had a website and they still do. where most businesses of that time did not.
Yeah, that was early.
Yeah. And their beliefs are very sci-fi-esque. So I don't put it anywhere in here, but basically how they got their money was making websites and doing like techie stuff like that. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, very interesting. Especially for that time period. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Both Applewhite and Nettles were fans of Star Wars and Close Encounters.
Hmm.
So which kind of brings in how they came up with this sci-fi cult.
Yeah.
They had theories that Mary was taken onto a spaceship and impregnated that way, and that God was an advanced alien. So
Okay.
instead of the Virgin Mary being impregnated by God's Holy Spirit, she was impregnated on a spaceship
Okay.
by the alien God.
Got it.
Yes. However, this cult also borrowed from other religions as well. So basically, Applewhite told his followers that he could save them from Lucifer, as he had been possessed by the same alien spirit that inhabited Jesus's body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
So he's basically like a reincarnated Jesus.
so instead of it being like a spirit, like the spirit of God inside of Jesus that like walked on earth as a man, it was an alien that
Okay.
inhabited the body kind of thing. So
Okay.
he basically, yes, like you said, the reincarnated Jesus.
Okay.
Despite Applewood's strong belief in this message, Heaven's Gate more often than not stirred up laughter and jest amongst people rather than any recruitment.
Okay.
However, some did join, as we will soon find out. Can't have a cult without followers, so.
Right, exactly.
The both of them, so Nettles and Applewhite, traveled around the country for 2 months together in a sexless partnership, and they were eventually arrested for credit card fraud. And Applewhite had also stolen a rental car, so he was put in jail for 6 months.
Oh.
I always I never understand like how, like, if you want to go without being caught, like, don't commit crimes.
Right.
So it just always like baffles my mind.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know.
I don't understand sometimes, because it's like, you're a criminal, you're supposed to be mildly like intelligent, you're supposed to know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
how did they recruit, do you think? I'm asking you.
I'm thinking. Like, I know like with Manson, he would just pick up like wayward girls.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. How did he recruit?
So they went around and they gave presentations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they wanted to go around, and they went to different convention centers and different places like that to promote themselves and their beliefs. And so Applewhite was obviously the speaker,
Uh-huh.
and he relied on Nettle's spiritual direction and wisdom in order to give their message out to the people.
Okay.
So on a pamphlet that they handed out, it said UFO was in big lettering at the top, but underneath it said, not a discussion of UFO sightings or phenomena. So at least they were honest. Because that could have been misleading, right? So
yeah, and that's something that you don't. It's a refreshing cult trait that you don't normally see.
exactly. I like it. At this time, the group went by a couple of other names rather than Heaven's Gate, such as Human Individual Metamorphosis, or HIM.
Okay.
And
that's also a band that my brother really enjoyed.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Total Overcomers Anonymous. So
I like Heaven's Gate better than both of those.
I do too. So very happy that they went with a better choice. This was all based on the promise that a UFO would come and take everyone to the next level, which was a better life, and they called it Tela, which stands for the evolutionary level above human.
Okay.
So it's basically they were just leaving Earth to go to a better place.
Gotcha.
Yes, on a spaceship. Only a few people were interested enough to follow up on this, though.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And but like through their common approach, like their honesty and just like explaining straight up what was going on, they convinced multiple people to leave their homes, friends, family, and belongings behind to travel the country in poverty for over 2 decades.
Wow.
2 decades.
I'll never, I don't know that I'll ever understand that mentality.
Like, it's crazy. I mean, like, I understand that. Like I said, I understand that mentality back then.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I don't understand it now. But I 100% I 100% understand why it happened back then as much as it did.
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
one,
it was definitely a different time.
it really was, and like, it's a lot of people were estranged from their families anyways, right? So
Yeah. And I mean, drugs are really prevalent. People were trying drugs and experimenting and trying
yeah,
to, you know, psychologically have breakthroughs and, become more spiritual and stuff.
exactly. And these people wanted to find, like, if they were estranged from their families, they wanted to find a family group that they could be part of, right? And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of these
Yeah.
cults were. They were these big families, and that seemed to be what Heaven's Gate was too. It was just like this big happy family.
Yeah.
So I completely understand, but I don't think I ever could. But I also live in a different time and I have a different home life. So
Right. Yeah.
at one point, the group actually had 200 members,
Okay.
which is crazy.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
a lot.
that's a lot of people. For some reason, though, and I asked this question of the individual who's going to be responding to my questions, as to why their groups dwindled so much, but their numbers did begin to dwindle. And I think it was because like they only wanted to keep the most dedicated people,
Gotcha.
but I don't know how that was determined. So,
Okay.
so an early recruit of the group stated that the appeal to join was because they were talking to my Christian heritage, but in a more updated, modern way.
Okay.
An example of this was the Mary was impregnated by taking up into a spaceship,
Right.
because it was a pretty solid and it was more of a technical answer than just her being a virgin and being impregnated by a spirit ghost.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it's so similar to what they already believe.
Yeah. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's more logical to them, right? Because it actually had like
Right.
a clear, distinct answer.
Yeah.
They were asked to cleanse their bodies since they were obviously impure.
Mm-hmm.
They were asked to give up fast food and sexual thoughts.
Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't do either of those.
I couldn't either. Especially not the food. All members wore baggy clothing and they had short hair because they wanted to mask their gender and keep up with the thought of equality.
Okay, well that's nice.
Yeah. So that was good at least. And that way, like, you could keep your sexual impure thoughts to a minimum, right? Because you're looking at basically yourself.
Yeah.
They took it to a next level though. And a previous cult member indicated that they drank nothing but lemonade mix, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup for 3 months.
Oh, that's the lemonade diet. I tried to do that once.
Ew.
It's
How was that?
I did it in college and it's supposed to like help you drop weight. I do not recommend it, everybody. It's not good for you. I was stupid. It's supposed to help you drop like weight. It's supposed to be like a lemonade cleanse. So it's supposed to like cleanse you and help you drop weight. So you're supposed to drink, you're not supposed to do it for 3 months. You're supposed to do it for like 4 days, I think.
Oh my gosh.
3 or 4 days. And yeah, you drink that mixture. Like you're supposed to drink so much in a day and it's just supposed to like cleanse you out and help you like drop weight really fast. And it kind of just tastes like lemonade, like a spicy lemonade. The taste is really not bad at all, but it's really, really bad for you. So please, nobody actually do it.
Did it work for you?
No, because I did it for a day and then I was so hungry. I was like, screw this, I'm gonna eat.
Sounds like you.
Yeah.
Sounds like how I would be too.
Well, and I decided to do it. I don't know what made me think this was a good idea, but I was like, I'm going to do it now. And it was finals week.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
I
a
was trying
bad
to take
idea.
finals. Yeah, I was, like, exhausted because I didn't have any food in me.
Yeah.
I was cranky. I was trying to study. I was like, "This is just
Bad idea.
stupid."
Yeah, there's like that military diet too. It's like a grapefruit, black coffee, and like
Yeah.
cottage cheese and some other stuff. And it's like, I could not do that.
No. No.
But yeah, so they did the lemonade diet for 3 months.
Okay. Yeah, you're definitely not supposed to do it that long because
No.
you're literally not eating anything.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was because, like, I mean, they had to cleanse themselves, but I don't know if they did it for so long because that's all they could afford, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Okay.
Everything in their world was designed to be universal, as kind of mentioned, like with the baggy clothing for equality.
Mhm.
As surviving member states, you were not to come up with, well, I'm going to make pancakes this big. Because there was a mixture, a size, how long you could cook on one side, how much the burner was
Oh, wow.
on, how many pancakes a person got, and how the syrup was poured onto it. So, like, literally everything was designed to be specific and equal.
Well, and then also when you're like I mean, that's definitely a psychological tactic, you know, when you're starved and you don't have enough calories, your brain isn't functioning normally,
Yeah,
you're exhausted, and you're more apt to follow rules and be complacent.
exactly. Which is what my next line pretty much says, but yours was a little
Oh,
more detailed, so thank you.
sorry.
No, it was good. I like it. Yours was more detailed, so that was great. But it basically just says, like, this is a common cult tactic, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to convince a whole group of people to commit suicide, then they basically had to change their whole belief system to match that of the cult. So you hit
Yep.
that right on the nose. On the head? Hit that on the
Yeah, on
head?
the nose.
Okay.
Hit the nail on the head.
And hit it on the
Hit the
nose.
nail on the head, but you hit that right on the Well, now I don't know. We're gonna keep this in so someone can tell us next week what it is.
No, because it's always me.
Well, I don't know either.
A buck for your dollar or whatever it was. A buck for your dime. I don't even know what I said.
That's my favorite whatever. I know it's hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I know that one too. I don't know why I said
But I don't know if you hit the
or
hit
it might just be right
nose.
on the nose. I don't know. Okay,
I don't
anyways,
know.
moving
Tell us
on.
what it is. People tell us what it is.
Kyle will tell me what it is. He'll text me right away. So they were told that the next level had no gender. Oh, okay. Actually, okay, sorry. This is like completely off topic. You can keep it in if you want to. It just made me realize because of like I don't know how to say things. So in my Whaley House episode, I said
Yes.
disembodied footprints, right? And one of my coworkers was like, "How do you have disembodied footprints?" Because she listens to this podcast like every week because she's wonderful. I love Robin. I love you, Robin. And she's like, "Yeah, so what are disembodied footprints?" I'm like, "I have no idea."
Okay,
I said because like the footprints might just disappear right away.
well, disembodied, you know, I just Googled it.
But
It does mean like separated or existing without the body, so that would be right.
yeah, but all footprints exist without a body.
Well, I mean, that's true.
Because that's what she said too. She's like, nope. Like no person is like remaining after a footprint is left. So I don't know.
Okay, so when I Google disembodied footprints, it comes up. So you're not wrong. I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, there's another one here that's talking about like a beach poltergeist, and it says disembodied footprints appearing in the sand.
Thank God. Yeah. All right. Well, there's your response, Robin. There's your answer.
So, like, it's probably not like the best way to phrase it, but it works.
Okay. Well, there we go. So you can leave that in if you want. That's so funny. Okay. Sorry. I just had to like get that out of the way because I'm like, I don't know. Let's see if Ashley knows.
I do not. And I went along with it. I was like, oh, yeah, disembodied footprints. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it makes it sound creepier, right?
Exactly. All right. So They were told, back to Heaven's Gate, they were told that the next level had no gender, and this ultimately led to some castration of 8 of the Heaven's Gate members
Oh no.
so that they could have non-sexual and platonic relations with everyone.
Oh no.
And this stemmed from Applewhite's same-sex relations with students and how he was unable to curb his homosexual urges.
Okay.
So he was like, well, let's just get that out of the way. Like,
Did he get castrated?
did he get castrated? Yes, he did.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
And apparently those that underwent the procedure were excited and giddy about it, according to a member.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were actually like pretty pumped about it.
You know, the one thing that I do have to say, and again, not condoning cults or anything like that, but most cult leaders, they'll say these things like, oh, you have to get castrated, or, oh, you know, we have to commit suicide, but they don't do it themselves.
Yeah, so it was like very good on him that he actually did it. Like,
Yeah, so you can tell that
impressed.
he like actually really believes it, and he's not just trying to manipulate people to do what he wants.
Exactly, yeah. So I like that about him. Yeah, he also got castrated. And people were like super excited about it, which is interesting.
Yes.
So that was 8 people that went through that. Heaven's Gate was on a clock at this point, because they didn't want to be around for when the Earth got recycled, like sort of like the apocalypse.
Gotcha.
And Applewhite and Nettles were fully convinced that a spacecraft would come down for them before that ever happened and that they would be safe.
Okay.
So they thought that this was going to happen really soon, and they were getting kind of worried about it.
Okay.
However, life unfortunately had something different in store for Nettles when she was diagnosed with cancer, and she died shortly after.
Oh.
And so this is from that other podcast, like the Heaven's Gate podcast.
Uh-huh.
Nettles had children.
Okay.
And she had previously been very, very close with one of her daughters. Her daughter never heard about her mother's death until some Heaven's Gate members came to her home. I think it was like months later to tell her about it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's awful.
I'm pretty sure that was what happened. I just remember her feeling like really upset that like she wasn't told right away, but like I don't.
Yeah.
That's from what I can remember.
Okay.
But just like so sad, so upsetting.
Yeah, that is so sad.
Yeah. So her death was obviously like a really huge blow to Applewhite's philosophy.
Right.
Because her death went against many of their beliefs and teachings, such as the fact that they originally were to be beamed into space and take their bodies with them.
Okay.
So they weren't just going, yes, they weren't just going to be leaving spiritually. Their bodies would be going with them as well.
Okay.
However, Applewhite was an intelligent man, and he relied heavily on the fact that human bodies were simply vessels that could be left at any time when our time was done. So members understood that death could be necessary so they could be picked up by the aliens.
Okay.
Yeah, so he had to adjust his beliefs and philosophy in order to account for why Nettles left.
Gotcha. Okay.
She returned to live among Tella, and from there she would continue to help them on their journey because she did all that she could do on Earth in her human vessel. Okay. And now it was time for her to move on and help them from beyond.
Got it.
The group also began making videos in the early 1990s titled Beyond Human, The Last Call. And these videos were distributed via satellite. It was essentially them explaining what the group was and about the next level.
Okay.
And they also took out ads, hoping to recruit more people when they left this earth. And the next part of this cult began March 26th, 1977.
Okay.
There were 39 active Heaven's Gate members. 21.
Oh, that's small.
Yeah, so from 200 down to 39.
Wow, okay.
So it was 21 women and 18 men. And they rented a mansion in a gated community just outside of San Diego. Applewhite indicated to the owner of this home that his group was made up of Christian-based angels.
Oh.
Yeah. So Explains something. Now, at that time, there was a comet coming called, I'm just going to pronounce it how I believe it's supposed to be pronounced, okay?
Okay.
Hale-Bopp.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool.
Hale-Bopp.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. And Applewhite had the belief that there was a UFO coming in behind it, and that it was their UFO that God's aliens had on. It was their UFO that had God's alien on it.
Did they ever talk about like why he thought that there was a spaceship on this comet?
Just because, like, I think it's because the comet was supposed to hit Earth, and that was his thought. That I could be completely wrong here. This is just my theory.
Okay.
And that the comet, because like a lot of times when you hear that a comet's coming, you freak out and you're like, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. So they potentially could have thought the same thing.
Okay.
And be like, oh, it's our time. Like the world's supposed to be ending, but we're having a spaceship coming to rescue us. So obviously, like it's being hidden behind the comet's tail.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That is my theory.
Okay.
Applewhite believed that this was perfect timing because if they waited any longer, they would be wiped out like the rest of the world when it got recycled. So they all went out for one last meal together, which consisted of iced tea, salads with tomato vinegar dressing, turkey pot pie, and my favorite, cheesecake. Not my favorite, with blueberries on top.
Yeah, I'm not a huge blueberry. I like blueberries like as the berry, but I'm not like a huge blueberry like anything else.
See, and I don't really like blueberries at all. I try and buy them, and then they're just like always so inconsistent and blech.
Yeah, I like the really tart ones. The ones that aren't like super tart are just kind of like bleh.
See, I like the ones that are hard, like harder.
Oh, okay.
I don't like them when they're squishy. I don't like things when they're squishy because then I'm like, it's nasty.
Well, now I want some blueberries.
But anyways, they had like a really nice dinner, right?
Yeah.
But they all got the same thing.
Okay.
And according to the waiter that was serving them, they were all super nice and polite, and they were all very happy. So like they weren't depressed or sad.
Okay. Well, yeah, because they believe they were going home.
Exactly. They believe they were going to a much better place.
Yeah.
Before the end, members made what were called exit videos. And Applewhite made one final video encouraging others to follow them, and you can still find it on YouTube.
Oh, creepy.
I honestly recommend watching it. It's very, very fascinating. I had to watch it for one of my cults classes, and it was very, very interesting.
Okay.
Over the course of 3 days, the members consumed a mixture of barbiturates, which were commonly used in the 60s and 70s in the treatment of anxiety, insomnia, and sleep disorders.
Okay.
And they mixed those barbiturates in applesauce and then washed it down with vodka.
Sounds like my kind of party.
Exactly. Over these 3 days, people went in groups. So the ones that were remaining put bags over their heads of the ones that were consuming the product.
Okay.
So that they could suffocate as well.
Okay.
Those that stayed behind cleaned up the bodies, put them neatly in their bunk beds, and covered their faces and their bodies with a purple cloth.
So do you know how they decided who stayed behind?
No.
Okay.
Like nobody really, like everybody died in the end. I think it was just like the more dedicated ones kind of went last because he knew that, you know, they're going to actually do this.
Okay.
And not chicken out. So that's my theory.
Okay.
Is that the most dedicated ones stayed behind because it was like, yeah, they're totally going to follow through. They're not going to chicken out and ruin this for all of us.
Okay.
So Applewhite was the third from last to go, which left 2 others to clean up his body and then take their own lives in the end. So they were found just on the ground.
Okay.
And not neatly put away. A former member came to check on the group and found the bodies, and they were all wearing identical black and white Nike sneakers and matching armbands which stated Heaven's Gate Away Team.
Okay.
After this discovery, Nike actually discontinued that style of shoe worn by the members,
Oh, good for Nike.
Yes, because I mean it was negatively associated, and
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, we're not appreciative that they gave us that free advertising.
Right, yeah. Not all advertising is good advertising.
Exactly. But the shoes are actually now a collector's item.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so they've
Gross.
like sold for like thousands of dollars.
Gross.
Um, so again, Nike did not appreciate that form of advertising and repeatedly offered that they had nothing to do with what happened.
Yeah.
Surviving members also confirmed that the only reason the shoe was ever purchased was due to the price of the shoe, not the style. So it was
Oh,
just
okay.
cheaper to get it in bulk than any other type of shoe.
Gotcha.
And they committed what is widely believed to be suicide in order to ascend to Tella. But to them, it wasn't suicide because they were just like
Right.
beaming up, right?
Right. So, legally,
Yes.
is that considered suicide? Because they technically didn't put the bags on their heads, someone else did.
Yeah, but they also were the ones that willingly like took the barbiturates, right? And
Yeah.
because of the exit videos, like some of them were basically just like, this is what I want, this is what is happening. So
Okay.
like they basically had suicide videos, right?
Yeah. I just wonder, like, if that went, like, if for some reason, you know, one of them stayed alive and it went to court, how that would play out.
I don't think so. I like, to me, it's always been classified as a mass suicide.
Yeah.
So that's that part of my episode.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I found an email address on their website.
Mm-hmm.
Check out their website. It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
They responded right away. It's believed and it's speculated that there's probably 2 surviving members operating their website right now, and their names
Okay.
are, I'm not even going to say their names because I
Okay.
want to keep them anonymous, but it is speculated that there are 2 surviving members operating their website.
Okay.
And I didn't confirm it because I wanted them to keep their privacy.
Right.
So I asked them 10 questions.
Okay.
They're very short answers. I still appreciate responses nonetheless.
Yeah.
So I just found it really, really fascinating and cool. So my first question was, now that T and Do have ascended to the next level, who is the head, so to speak, of Heaven's Gate? Because in my mind, the website's still operational. People are still responding to emails. So like you would think that there's
some kind of operation going on.
Yeah. So their response was, there is none. And the group came to an end in 1997.
Okay.
So there's that. Number 2, what are your current beliefs / message? Do they still align with the original message? And if they do, what was that message? Or have your beliefs and message changed and or modernized over the years? The answer was still the same as the beginning in 1975. There is a real physical level above the human. Sorry. I keep getting ahead of myself. There is a real physical level above the human one on this planet. It is called the next level. They created this planet and all life on it.
Okay.
Number 3, were there any rules that specifically applied to men or women? Answer, no. All understandings and ways were all the same.
Okay.
Number 4, how many members do you currently have? Because I knew that there was that one member who I'm waiting on responses from that's been very active and vocal, and he's been in a lot of interviews. And then obviously they're responding to my emails, right? So,
right.
But they responded with 0.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I guess because the cults know more, so.
Right.
5, are any current members previous members? We are aware that there were followers that left Heaven's Gate for a period of time and were therefore not involved in the ascension of 1997. The response was, we joined at the beginning in 1975 and have always been with or associated with the group.
Okay.
6, are there any current plans for another ascension? Response, no. So that's good.
Yeah.
Number 7. For our listeners, the Ascension in 1997 appears to be a suicide pact by your followers. Perhaps you could elaborate on the ideals about the Ascension and how it differs from the traditional appearance of suicide. Their response was, there was no suicide. They transferred into new, space-capable, next-level bodies and entered a craft to depart into the next level. No one died in a next-level sense since the soul transferred.
Okay.
Very fascinating. I like that response. They had good grammar. Number 8. What was the reason behind the initial ascension that Doe followed through on? And the response was to physically graduate into the next level. Understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9. Was there a reason behind the specific clothing chosen for the ascension? Answer. I like this answer. Sassy. No, it was just a uniform to display unity as a team. Don't read more meaning than necessary into it.
Okay.
But it is nice that it was like there was no specific reason. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And finally, number 10. What was believed to have happened after Ascension, and is that the current belief? Answer is yes. They entered into the next level and graduated off this planet.
Okay. So I have 2 questions, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer them.
Of course.
If they hadn't had the mass suicide, would you naturally when what's her face? Bo?
Okay.
Doe?
Nettles?
Yeah, when Nettles died, she naturally ascended. So would the rest of them do that too? And if so, why then did they need to hurry it along?
I think it's because like the way Applewhite explained it was that she left she left sooner than they had planned because she did all that she could on this planet and she wanted to be able to help them from beyond to help them transition easier. So they thought that the Earth was going to be recycled because of that comet that was coming, and so that's why they needed to do it sooner than possible.
Okay, and my other question is, the guy that you reached out to.
Yes.
Why was he not in the Ascension? Do you know?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know if they explained it in that other podcast, but it is one of the questions I asked him.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. Thanks for listening, guys. And if you want more of us, you can find us on TikTok at Histories and Mysteries Pod. We are on Instagram and Facebook at Histories and Mysteries. And you can email us at historiesandmysteries515@gmail.com. And we are currently working on a website, so hopefully we'll have that up soon.
Yay. I'm excited to have the website up.
Yeah, it'll be cool. Jessica's done a lot of the bulk of it, and it looks amazing, so I'm excited to get it all up and out.
I hope it looks okay, because I had no idea what I was doing. There's a lot of tears. Lots of crying involved.
Oh, no.
But
oh, goodness.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for joining, and we look forward to bringing you 2 new episodes next week.
Bye, guys. Have a great week.